We're dropping this underwater camera 1,000 feet deep, and what we captured this far below the surface was unbelievable. But before we go that deep, we're sending it 200 feet deep down onto a shipwreck, and what attacked our camera on this drop nearly costed us our $500 setup. We start our morning making the run to our first spot, a shipwreck that was sitting 200 feet below the surface. This is where we plan to drop the underwater camera first. On this drop, you guys are going to see how something attacked our $500 camera. Once we arrive to the spot, we rig up the camera, connect the battery to the electric reel, and now we switch over to the underwater camera point of view and make our way down to the bottom. We start making our way down to the bottom, and coming up next, after this 200-foot drop, we drop this exact underwater camera 1,000 feet deep to really uncover what lived this deep. And what we were able to see that far below the surface was unreal. But as we continue our way down for the 200-foot drop, you guys will notice it doesn't take us long at all to get to the bottom. On our next drop, when we drop 1,000 feet deep, it takes us over 4 minutes just to hit the bottom. You guys can now see this shipwreck, and this shipwreck was giant. As we approach it, you guys will notice we had a really bad landing. For the first minute, we were stuck in this wreck. As you guys can see, we're stuck in this little crack in this wreck. It was a really unlucky landing. But then a fish shows up, and that looks like a really nice sized fish. And if you guys have any clue what kind of fish these are, let me know in the comments down below. I'm not 100% sure what any of these fish are. After being stuck in this shipwreck for a good 5 minutes, we finally were able to break free. So I decided to bring the baits up just a little and reset on a better side of the shipwreck just so I wouldn't get stuck in this wreck again. We've now repositioned into the new area, and there were fish everywhere. I'm not 100% sure what these fish are. They look like some kind of grunt, but if you guys know what any of these fish are, drop it in the comments. And in the next minute, this is where the worst thing possible almost happened. Our camera rig was attacked. We ended up hooking into a snapper on this drop, and you guys can see it looked like a nice sized fish. But for some reason, whenever the underwater camera is filming, these fish always figure out a way to get off the hook. And that's exactly what happened with this snapper. Once I felt there were no fish on the rig, I just dropped the rig back down to the bottom, and this is where the worst thing possible almost happened. We're now about 5 seconds off the bottom, and these grunts are already all over the rig before we have even hit the bottom. And right after this drop, we make the run 7 miles offshore to drop this camera 1,000 feet deep, so stay tuned. So you guys can now see the giant has arrived. This Barracuda was massive, and it scared all the grunts away. But after a few seconds, the grunts came back, and one of them ended up hitting our rig, and that's where it all went down. After that grunt hit our rig, the Barracuda ate him right off our rig. And the worst part about this Barracuda hitting our rig was he hit right in the middle. And all the hooks are connected to the camera, which is always really scary. Sadly, we lost our deep drop rig and the deep drop weight, but on the bright side, we were able to save the underwater camera. And at the end of the day, that's the most valuable thing. So we now brought this camera up, and we didn't want to end on a drop like that. So we decided to make the run 7 miles offshore where we can drop this camera 1,000 feet deep. Once we positioned the boat 1,000 feet deep on this crater, it was time to set up the rig. And when you're this deep, you gotta beef up your tackle. Once we attached a new rig and deep drop weight, it was time to attach the bait. So I now took a whole squid, and squid is always the best bait out here because it stays on the hook so well. And all I do is take some fishing scissors and chop the squid into 3 pieces. Once all the bait was attached, I turned on the underwater fishing camera and hooked up the battery to the electric reel. After that was done, I loosened the drag, grabbed the 6-pound weight, and gently placed it in the water. And now it's time to switch over to the underwater camera point of view. So we start making our way down to the bottom. And when you're fishing this deep, it usually takes over 4 minutes just to get down there. But on this day, the current was really bad. It actually took us over 6 minutes to hit bottom. And you guys are going to notice a massive difference in how dark it is down there. At 200 feet, there's still a good amount of light, but at 1,000 feet, it's pitch black. So I fast forward to the bottom here, and we're now about 5 seconds off the bottom. As you guys can see, there's no light down here, and that's why I added those 2 deep drop lights on the top of the rig, just to help the camera see a little bit more. We are now sitting 1,000 feet deep, and what we're looking for are 2 green dots. When you see 2 green dots together, that usually means there's a fish down there. Those 2 green dots you guys just saw on the right side of the screen was actually a good sized fish. Those green dots flickering on the bottom are actually a fish. And usually when they don't move like that, most of the time it's a tilefish. And out here 1,000 feet deep, these tilefish are massive. And if you guys have any good ideas for where you would want to see us drop this camera next, let me know in the comments down below. Sadly, we waited for another minute, but this tilefish just wouldn't hit the hook. So I repositioned the rig, and just watch the left side of your screen. You guys are going to see these 2 eyes just swim up right there, and he hit our middle bait, and we finally were hooked up. And this fish felt nice. So I slowly started bringing this fish up, and he was going crazy. And we actually ended up having 2 fish on the rig this time. Bringing these fish up is the longest part. It usually takes up to 10 minutes just to bring this rig up 1,000 feet. And that's why it's so important to use strong bait, because you don't want to have to bring this rig up every couple of minutes unless you have a fish on. So we're about 600 feet under the boat, and it's still pitch black. Usually you start seeing some light at around 400 feet. And if you guys enjoyed this underwater camera video, drop a like. This video took us days to film. So now you can see these 2 fish, and these are black belly rosefish. They actually taste awesome, but they're just not big fish. You need a ton of them to make one good meal. We now have these fish right under the boat, so I started reeling in the last couple of feet of line. Then I pulled the electric reel out of the rod holder to let my brother Hunter come over and help me land these rosefish. And these black belly rosefish have poisonous fins, so you want to be extremely cautious when catching them. But after a couple of seconds, my brother Hunter got a good grip on the line, and we were successfully able to land these black belly rosefish. We hope you guys enjoyed this fishing video, and we hope to see you in the next Barjack's Family fishing video.